Yeah, all good. All good. Just going for a nice, peaceful walk this Arvo. It's another hot one. Bit cooler than it has been, but nevertheless, it's a warm one. And yeah, I was doing a bit of reflecting and going for a walk. I've been right around. And probably see Jodrell Bank off in the distance. I went there the other day actually to the Eclipse event there, and Manchester skyline just in the background there. Maybe it's too far off camera to see it, but anyway, more to the point, I was reflecting on pre-season. This stage of pre-season, towards the end of pre-season, the players are raring to go. I mean, everyone sort of just wants to start the season, in my experience of working with individual players and teams over the years. They're really raring to go. Looking forward to just getting along with the season. And I suppose in pre-season you can win all your games and play really well, and then the first game can go badly, you lose, and you can even first few games not go well, or maybe the season goes as well as you maybe would have thought it might have gone. But equally, the other side of things, you can play badly in pre-season, lose games, and start the season well. Of course, the obvious is true. You can play well in pre-season, carry that form into the season, play badly, and carry that form as well. That goes without saying. But for me, yeah, look, it's not always an indication. And I suppose pro clubs, sometimes new players come in, players leave. You might have a new manager coming in, trying new formations, and there's a lot to take into consideration. And in non-league as well, you've got sometimes players going on holiday, and it can be more of an evolving door, players coming and going. So, but I suppose it goes without saying, like from a pre-season perspective, the aim is to make sure you're ready for that first game and beyond. Obviously, the training gets periodized. You want to be ready mentally, physically, mentally. You want to make sure the players understand tactics and they're fine-tuned to hit the ground running. And don't get me wrong, I think it's always good to get results. You want to win games in pre-season, but obviously not at the expense of trying to prepare for those games when you know the big picture is the start of the season. What it comes down to is to be ready for that first game. You want to minimise any injury risk. You want to make sure you don't, you stay injury free. You want to make sure that the training's periodised and the players are ready to go in that first game and beyond. And you want to make sure everyone's sort of mentally good to go as well, for the first game. But I think, one of the things for me are certainly, towards the end of pre-season, the players just up for it. And, for the season starting and just, ready to go, really. And I think that's sort of, one thing to take into sort of consideration for sure from a performance perspective, to make sure you're sort of focused on doing the best pre-season you possibly can. But I think with that, obviously, sort of like, I think all the coaching staff and manager, you've got to sit down and start pre-season. Or you sometimes, if the manager and coaching staff is continuation, you'll sort of sit down the season before, end of season, and plan the off season and pre-season as early as that. But if you're sort of coming into a team and, new manager, new coaching staff, then obviously sort of like, you sit down and clearly plan the objectives for sort of pre-season. And a lot of that sort of is focused on starting the first game, of the competitive season, mentally and physically, ready to go, really, and obviously trying to maintain that form beyond. That's my take on it. You might see it differently. It's sort of, everyone's got their own perspective, so it's always good to have other perspectives too.